I used to think that family parties were all about love and feeling warm inside. When I was a kid, our house was always loud during these big dinners. You could hear plates clinking together and chairs scraping against the hard floor. My cousins would walk from room to room, like they were just floating around having fun. It looked happy on the outside, but underneath all that loud noise and smiling faces, there was always a hidden set of rules. No one talked about these rules out loud, but everyone knew them. We all knew who belonged where and who was the boss. My father was the boss. He always sat at the very head of the big dining table. Everyone else just found their place around him. It was like he was the sun, and we were all just little planets stuck pulling around him. Whatever he said was the law. If he did not like something, you knew it right away without him even having to shout. I had not been back to that house for a really long time. In fact, I had not visited since my daughter was born. She is 7 years old now. Maybe a small part of me hoped that things would feel different this time. I thought that if I walked and holding my little girl's hand, the house would feel softer and kinder. Having a child changes the way you look at the whole world. It makes you hope that maybe the people from your past have changed, too. My daughter was old enough to notice things around her, but she was still young enough to think that every room was a safe place. She did not know about the hidden rules of my family. She did not know that you had to be careful where you stepped or where you sat in this house. When we got to the house that evening, it smelled like roasted meat and baked apples. People were talking and laughing in the living room. It almost felt nice. Then it was time to eat. We walked into the big dining room. The long table was already set up perfectly. There were clean white plates, my mother's shiny silver forks and knives, and those big, heavy wooden chairs. Those were the exact same chairs that had been there for my whole life. Seeing them brought back a lot of heavy, old feelings. Before I could even say a word to her, my daughter let go of my hand. She walked away from me with that easy, happy walk that kids have. She believed that she was welcome anywhere. She saw an empty seat near the middle of the big, main table. Without asking anyone, she climbed right up into the heavy wooden chair. She sat down and smoothed the front of her pretty dress, just like she had seen grown-ups do. She looked so proud and happy to be sitting with the big people. For one short second, I let myself hope. I told myself, it is fine. She is just a little girl. No one will mind. But then, the chair right next to her slammed backwards. It was not a huge, loud crash. It was not a bang, but it was a sharp, hard sound that cut right through all the happy noise in the room. My father was standing there. He had one of his big hands tightly grabbing the back of the chair he had just pushed away from the table. He looked down at my sweet 7-year-old girl. His face was hard. His voice came out very calm. It was the voice of a man who had never, ever been told no in his own house. He looked at her and said, "Kids like you sit with the extras." His words were so simple. He said it in a normal, everyday way, like he was just telling someone where to put the salt shaker. He did not yell. He did not have to. Suddenly, the whole room just froze. It was like someone pushed a pause button on a movie. Everything stopped. I started noticing little things that I would not normally see. I saw my aunt freeze right in the middle of pouring water into a glass. The water just hung there in the air. I saw my older cousin suddenly look down at his paper napkin, like it was the most interesting thing in the whole world. I saw my mother standing over by the kitchen door. She was holding her own hands together so tightly that her fingers were turning white. No one made a sound. No one said a single word. Everyone in that room understood exactly what had just happened. Everyone knew the rules, but my daughter did not know the rules. She looked around a giant table with a small, confused smile on her face. She thought it was a joke. She looked from face to face, waiting for someone to start laughing and explain the funny trick to her. Instead, a thick, heavy silence filled the room. The quiet was so deep it felt like a thick fog wrapping around all of us. Standing there looking at my little girl, I suddenly felt like I was 10 years old all over again. When I was a little boy, standing in this exact same dining room, I heard that exact same cold tone in my father's voice. Back then, nobody came to help me. Nobody picked me up and moved me to a safer place away from his harsh words. For a few seconds, my mind felt split in two. I was the scared little boy from the past, and I was a grown man standing in the doorway today. Both of those feelings bumped hard against each other inside my chest. But I was not that scared little boy anymore. I took a deep breath. I walked over to the big table. I did not walk fast. I did not storm over there feeling hot and angry. I just walked nice and steady. When I got to my daughter's chair, she turned to look at me. Her little face looked so relieved. It was that special look kids give when they think their parent is about to fix a small problem, like a broken toy or a scraped knee. I did not look at my father yet. I reached down and slid one arm under her legs and the other behind her back. I lifted her up nice and gently. She felt so light in my arms. I brushed a tiny bit of fake dust off the front of her pretty dress. I smoothed out the soft cloth where it had wrinkled against the hard, wooden chair. I wanted her to feel completely safe. Then I finally looked up at my father. I really, truly looked at him. He was standing exactly the same way he always did. His chin was held high. He still had that quiet, bossy look on his face. He expected me to just lower my head and do what he said. He had trained almost everyone in this room to act that way. But something felt different this time. The moment did not feel heavy and scary like it used to. It felt weak. It felt like all the air that usually made him look so big and powerful had just quietly leaked out of the room. He was just an older man standing by a chair. I spoke very quietly. I only said 4 simple words. She stays with me. I did not yell or make a big dramatic scene. I just placed that one sentence right in the middle of the room for everyone to hear. My father's face changed right away. He did not look angry. He looked like he suddenly understood something new. He knew exactly what my 4 words meant. He knew I was saying no to him. I was drawing a line in the sand. That kind of invisible boundary had never been allowed in this house before. Behind him, I heard my mother take a sudden, sharp breath. It was not a loud noise, but in that totally quiet room, it sounded like all the air had been sucked right out her chest. For one long second, nobody moved a muscle. Then, for the first time in my entire life, my father did not talk back right away. He did not give a harsh order. His eyes darted down to my little girl, and then back up to me. He was looking at me like he was trying to figure out a tough puzzle. Time had changed things in this house, and he just had not noticed it until right now. I was not the little boy sitting quietly at the edge of the table anymore, and he finally knew it. After what felt like a very long time, my father stepped back from the wooden chair. It was only half a step backward, but everyone sitting at the big table saw him do it. He backed down. I held my daughter a little higher on my hip and turned away from him. We walked over to the smaller table near the window. That was the table where the cousins and the extras usually sat. We sat down together. Just the 2 of us. Slowly, people started talking again. It was very quiet at first. It sounded like an old car engine trying to start up again after dying on the road. My daughter leaned against my arm. She whispered to me, asking if it was time for dessert soon. She asked if the pie smelled like apples. She never asked about what just happened at the big table. Maybe she was too young to really understand the heavy stuff. I hugged her close and hoped she would never have to understand it. When we left the house later that night, no one tried to stop us. As I looked back from the driveway, the house looked exactly the same as it always had on the outside, but I knew something inside had finally broken. It was not a loud crash or a big explosion. It was just a small shift, but it was enough to know that the old, scary rules of that house were gone forever.